All right, so today I want to talk about artifacts in Claude. And to do this, if you want to follow along or try this out, make sure when you're using Claude.ai in the new chat here, click on this little beaker icon and make sure under artifacts here that you've turned this on. It's off by default, I believe. So turn that on. And then the reason I want to talk about this is for the most part, I've been using ChatGPT and GPT 4.0 specifically as of late. And then about a month ago, I heard that Claude 3.5 Sonnet was released. I came out, set up an account, tried it out a little bit, found it interesting because it wasn't the GPT interface. I wasn't too thrilled about coming back to it. In other words, I just didn't have a reason to come back to it. However, recently I wanted to see how good it could do at writing some basic front end code. And so a few nights ago, maybe it was last night actually, I asked it to help me create a web page. And in a few back and forths, I think maybe 4 or 5, I had it create this page here where I've got my course catalog. I can filter by publisher. And then on the courses, I have a button to click to learn more, a little description. In fact, I realized it actually created these descriptions for me because I didn't give it the descriptions, I just gave it the titles. So overall, I like this interface. It looks pretty good. It was pretty easy to create. And so what I want to do now is I want to walk through how I set that up. We'll create something different this time, let you see how artifacts work, because this is a feature that I think ChatGPT needs to add. In fact, on day one of using ChatGPT, my frustration was that I could have it generate code and then I could have it modify that code, but then there was no tracking of a document of some sort. And so from day one, I thought, you know what, a killer feature to have would be the ability to work on a document or documents. And so that's what we're talking here with Claude. So let's get this started. And let's do something like make me a web page HTML with my list of favorite songs. Let's just see what it comes up with here. Give this a second. All right, so right away it's detected I want HTML. And so on the right-hand side here, you can see I've got the code. It also opens up the preview then after it writes the code. So I can actually see what this looks like. And then maybe I want to make some changes to this. So what I can do here, can you make it so that the hovered song visually indicates that it's hovered? Let's see what it can do here to change that. Run that. It's going to hopefully recreate the code here on the right. Yep, there you go. So this is version 2 of this artifact. I can go back to version 1 if I want. Once it's done that, then I can hover over, and there you go. You can see I have a little CSS effect, I assume here, that allows me to hover over an item, and then it stands out. And maybe I want it to do something different. Like maybe I want to do make the hover effect blue. We'll just see what it comes up with here. And so to regenerate it. Now, one of my gripes is that to make changes to a document or an artifact, you have to recreate the entire thing. In the future, I hope they have something where they could perhaps just internally generate patches to a document and then take those patches and apply it to the entire artifact. For now, though, you have to feed the entire artifact in, and then it has to spit out the entire artifact. Now, that's worked out pretty well so far. I haven't noticed any sort of loss in the process of doing that, but I think it would just be faster if you had the ability to have the model spit out patches like a git commit and just have those applied then to the document. And then you can iterate on the document a lot faster that way because it doesn't have to recreate the whole thing every single time. It'd also work better in terms of token limits. All right, so let's see what it did here. All right, so it's got a nice light blue effect. And that's actually what I was hoping. I should have said this. I didn't want it to be like a bold blue. I wanted it to give a blue hue to it. And you can see it's chosen a blue color that is light enough it's not conflicting with the text for a given song. So that looks really nice. But I'm thinking it'd be nice if use the Beatles for songs. If we get some real songs in here, let's just see what it comes up with here. So one tip I would recommend is that when you're working on these documents, keep them small and keep them focused on a specific task. And then when it comes time to extract the contents, then you could probably take out that little chunk of code or that file, extract it out and put it into a project, which actually is another direction I'd like to see improvements. I'd like some ability to actually work on an entire project. And they do have a new projects feature. I haven't tried it out, but I would like some ability to basically manage a Git repo and have this integrated. And in my opinion, that's probably going to be some sort of offline tool, a plugin to an IDE or a text editor of some sort, where it can perform the same transformations of artifacts, but do it in a fashion where it has access to an entire project. I think that would be incredibly powerful. That said, as far as creating HTML is concerned, this is definitely a great interface to create one-off components or elements or designs, and then lift these out and put them into an actual project yourself. And so now one thing I might want to do is use CSS file to style the page. This is going to show you one shortcoming right now. It can create a CSS file. It can lift out the styles into that file. However, as we'll see in a moment here, it can't actually then load that file. So you can see there's the reference. I'll wait for this to complete here. It's got the CSS. I can come back here then. I can come to the HTML page. Looks like it created a new HTML page in this case. So this is the first page I was working on. And then it looks like for some reason it's created a new page. Oh, when I asked it to split out the CSS, it now created 2 new artifacts. Not sure what the trigger is for that, but it's no big deal. Open up the HTML for this. You can see it links to styles.css, which links into that other CSS file. Oh, and by the way, I'm noticing there is no preview button in this case. So I don't know why it even marks it as HTML, but for some reason it doesn't have a preview button. Let's see if we can fix that. I cannot preview the HTML page you just made. Let's see if it can fix itself. Did it just combine everything back together? Or did it go back to that original page? Let's go back here and look. Oh, it's created yet another page and now it merged the two things together. So, okay. Not really listening to what I want, but what I wanted to show you, I guess I can't show you here, but if I come back over to my project, when I was building this course catalog, you can see right here, I have no styling as I step through the different versions. And that's because I had it lift out the CSS, and behind the scenes here, again, it linked to that CSS page, but it can't actually load that. In other words, right now, they don't have the ability, at least as far as I understand in my testing, to be able to split out JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and then actually be able to render all of that in the preview. And I think that's a shortcoming. It's probably something that they'll address. It's definitely something that would make this more useful, though, because if you're going to work on small chunks of documents, then splitting out separate files would be a good way to do that. You can have multiple JS files, multiple CSS files, and then even multiple HTML files. And if they're all separated out, then you could easily regenerate a subset, just 1 or 2 of those files, and not have to update a ton of code in the process. And so that would make this a more viable solution in terms of editing an actual website. All right, and then other feature I'd like to see here, if I come to one of the versions or one of the versioned artifacts here, I would like to have some sort of button to be able to look at a diff of this, specifically with regards to the code. I'd like to see the changes in the code. Maybe I could toggle something on and see green where new code is added or red where code's removed. That would be useful. And then it's possible that I might want to see a feature to be able to edit these code files. There's no way to change this myself right now. I have to ask it to make the changes. Perhaps that's actually a good thing that I'm not the one making the changes, but I could see maybe a small use case for being able to collaboratively edit on the artifacts and have it then look at the changes that I made, understand what I'm doing, and incorporate that into any further modifications that it makes. And I think that's about it for now. I might take a look at the projects feature. It has some overlap with artifacts. If I find something interesting there, I'll create another video. For the time being, though, let me know what you think of this. Is this something that you might find useful? I think it's something that's great in terms of designing front ends to be able to spike ideas back and forth, to not actually have to change the HTML and the CSS. That will be a huge time saver. It will multiply what a person can get done. And I find it to be a very interesting feature to have these artifacts. But what do you think about this? Let me know in the comments.